Hello and welcome back. In this lecture, I want to provide a demonstration of our first challenge for reading from a file. We're going to count the number of lines inside of a file by using fgetc. So let's bring up code blocks and let's create our project. Here we're just going to say new project, and it's going to be a basic reading a line. So we'll say console application, select C, and we'll name this basic or counting number of lines. How about count number of lines? Okay. And so this is going to create our main.c, which is good. Before we even start this application though, we want to actually create our file that has some text in it. Since we're not reading anything, we're just reading or writing, we're just reading in the number of lines. So you have to know where you saved your project. I'm saving my projects inside of my downloads directory. And when you create a new project, inside your downloads directory, you go to that project name. And my project name is count number of lines. So inside count number of lines, I have my main.c file. I can create my file right in this directory. Okay. So I'm just going to right click inside the directory and I'm going to say new, and I'm going to create a text file. I'm just going to say new text document, and it's just going to be text.txt. I'm going to open it up. You can open up in any editor. This is WordPad. It's going to put in some lines. Hello. This will be testing for counting. Just a bunch of lines. And then you want to save that and close it. Now that I have my file created, I can actually start implementing something. The first thing I want to do is I want to create a constant variable for the file name. So I'm just going to use define. This is going to represent my file name. I'm just going to say file name in all caps, and this is going to be equal to whatever I just named it, which again is test.text. So test.text. And all my code is going to be in my main function. I want to create my file pointer. Remember, to create a file pointer, you just use all caps, file, and then say star, and then you can just say fp, and I'm going to initialize that to null. Whenever you do file reading and writing, you have to make sure you include standard lib.h. I'm also going to create a single character that's going to be used. I'm just going to say char, and then I'm going to create a counter for all my lines. I'm going to say int lines count, and I'm going to initialize that to 0. First thing you need to do when you do any kind of reading from a file is you have to open it up. So the fopen function is going to return a file pointer, so I want to assign that to my fp variable, and I want to say fopen and the name of the file name, which I already defined as a constant file name, and I want to open up for reading and reading only, so I just say r. So here I want to do fopen with my file name as my constant, and then r in double quotes. That's our mode. I want to only read only. I do not want to write. If I did an r+, I would write as well. Before we use the pointer represents the file. I want to make sure that the pointer is not equal to null, so I want to do an if. I want to say fp is equal to null. Then if it's equal to null, I just want to display an error in return. So I want to do something like printf file does not exist. Whatever you want to do. And this is going to then, we're just going to want to return a -1 from our function. After we've opened the file, now we can actually start reading characters. So we can write a while loop, and we want to say while our character, which is a character, equals fgetc. Fgetc is reading a single character. We pass in our file pointer, and we want to basically say we want to read characters until we see an EOF. So we say until it's not equal to EOF. Then we're going to jump out of our loop. Something like this. So we're going to read in characters until we get to the end of the file. As long as our character is not a line feed, we want to only increment when we see a line feed. So we're going to say if our character is equal to a line feed, then we want to basically increment our counter. We just want to say lines count ++. That's going to count our lines. And then we jump out of the loop when we get to the end of the file. But we only increment our count if we get a line feed. The last thing you always want to do after you're done reading or writing is you want to close your file. So you want to say fclose and then pass in the file pointer. And then we'd also want to set our file pointer equal to null. And then we can print out the number of lines that we run in. So we can just say printf total number of lines are %d \n, and then we can just put lines count. And then just return from the main. Just like that. So again, to go over this code, we create our file pointer, set it to null, create a character, and a local variable for counting the lines. We open up our file on line 12. We open it up in mode for read only. We make sure it's not null. And then we do our while loop to read in each character until we're at the end of the file. Every time we see a line feed, we increment that counter. And then we close our file and set our pointer to null. And then we print out the number of lines. So let's go ahead and build this. And we do have an extra line feed. We want to make sure, we don't forget the comma in our printf. And now when we run this, it's going to read from our file that we created and tell us how many lines we have. So it says total number of lines are 6. If we open up our text file, we should notice that there are 6 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 actually. So we'd have to increment the last one until we get the EOF. So there's a little bug here where we just say, because this is doing our last line feed before we hit the end of file. So you'd want to actually have this be one more. And then we would run it and it would actually work. So in this case, we'll add a couple lines. And in this case, we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines. We close the file. We run it again, compile it. And we should get 9. In this case, whoops. In this case, we get 9. So I'll save this source code. You can download it. This is the basics of reading data from a file using fgetc. You also want to become familiar with fgets. And then to format output, you can use fscanf to read in formatted output. I hope this was helpful. Thank you.